Yeah, let's do that later. Let's talk
Okay.
about. So, the name of the Wat is Wat
Wat Ram
Ram Poeng.
Poeng.
Ram.
Wat Lam Poeng, sorry, Wat Lam Poeng, yeah. And I think it might be called Wat Ram Poeng Topo Ram. It's got like a full name. And it's very accommodating to foreigners. The monks there speak English, Chinese, and Thai. A lot of them seem to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that's near
and
Chiang Mai.
yeah, it's actually very close to Wat Umong. It's just north of the airport.
Okay. And Umong is the Wat that's associated with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've been to Wat Umong on a retreat too. And although Wat Umong's retreats are much smaller, and there's much fewer people going there, the style at Wat Umong was much more laid back and much nicer experience at environment at Wat Umong. At Wat Rampung, it's quite, you get a schedule that you have to follow, and it's quite busy. There's many retreatants. There's many lay people coming and going for celebrations and for making merit and for, I don't know, just visiting the temple. Um, but I wanted to share my experience with Rampung today. So I came to the office, and the monk who oversees um, the foreigner retreats, um, his name was Sukito. He was very nice, but I shared my experience, like past meditation experience with him, because he wanted to know. And I said, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to like learning the Dhamma." And he said, "Oh, we don't teach the Dhamma to retreatants here. We only teach the meditation practice." So very Mahasi kind of, yeah. And as we talked about before, I think they have the whole idea that you start with sati and it pulls the other things along.
It does, but it takes 20 years.
Yeah.
Being associated with nobles pulls one along much faster.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes, it's true that if they practice only sati, that eventually sati will bring one to the here now. And then the thing that's still missing in all of that is the whole point about right noble effort to make a change, to
Yeah.
change our thoughts, to change our feelings. And for some reason, that's gotten missing in the Burmese method. And uh, it seems that the Burmese method is still quite common. Not still, but I mean quite common in Thailand. It's almost like it's on the grow.
Well, also in Chiang Mai, Achan Tong, who, I mean, people might be familiar with also, I forgot again his name now. I might have to do a quick Google search. He used to be called Noah Greenwoods. Can you remember his Pali name? He's a monk
No,
in Canada. Some of the Sangha group have. Oh, Yuttadhammo Bhikkhu. Yuttadhammo
yeah,
Bhikkhu.
yeah, Yuttadhammo. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He also studied at Wat Chom Tong, where I went to before with Ajaan Tong, and um, Ajaan Tong learned Vipassana Northern Thailand style, then moved on over to Myanmar or Burma, and then came back, and then he established all these retreat centers, So
Oh,
that's
I
why it's
get
so
it now.
common, and that's why it's so like prevalent
I
in this
got it.
area.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That one guy goes around and sets up all of those retreat centers. Got it.
Yeah. Mm.
Sounds
And
like he cared a lot.
well, yeah, he was good at his job. And I mean, this I've seen on the Discord group as well with discussions of, oh, should I trust this teacher if they don't smile, you know, if they don't show joy. And Achan Tong, I saw him before he actually died 2 months after my last retreat at Wat Chom Tong. And I saw him and, met him because I couldn't really, air quotes, because I can't speak or understand Thai and there was no translator around. But I did ceremonies with him and such. And he seemed really aware, really sharp. I can't remember if he was 96 or 90. He might have been 96. Do you want me to Google it right now?
Nope.
No problem.
Actually, it would be better if you Googled it after we stop and put it on so that we can transfer that with this video.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, for being so old, he was really, really sharp and aware of everything that was going on. But yeah, I never saw him smile. And I'm guessing that's because he got the four on the Satipatthana. Wait a second. Anapanasati Sutta, you've got the four tetrads, right? And you've got body, feelings, mind, and then Dhamma.
Let us say it. The stove and the wood is the mind, and then the smoke and the heat is the Dhammavidu.
Can you repeat that one more time?
In the Anapanasati, the mind would be associated with the stove and the wood, the firewood.
Mm.
And then the Dhammavidu is the heat and smoke that is produced by the stove and the wood.
Mm.
Okay. Another way to talk about it is mental states. What state of mind you're in. That the kind of thoughts that you will have will greatly depend upon the state of mind that you're in. For instance, what are the kinds of things that you say when you're really angry? Are those the same kind of things that you say when you're really afraid?
No.
Are they quite the opposite? Okay, so that's the whole point. And so the anger would be a certain kind of wood, and the fear would be a different kind of wood, which would produce different heats and different smokes.
Yeah.
Okay, so another way of thinking about it is that actually the stove is just the mind or the container, that the wood actually is the feelings, Vedana.
Yeah, I can see that.
The firewood that we put in there that gives all the smoke. Okay, so that's a way of understanding it. The Satipatthana.
Oh, sorry. I was. I mean, I guess it applies to that, but I was thinking of why these teachers who seem to be practicing for most of their lives, why they don't smile, why they don't have the joy. And we talked about with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa before. He recommended going through all four of the tetrads of anapanasati, developing the feelings aspect of that, moving on to the mind. Where the joy comes from. And if people or if monks, they go through life and they intentionally don't develop that, but skip right on to the Dhamma at the end and then cut off the feelings without developing them, then they're going to be not attracted to anything, really. They're just going through life, as it is, without trying to do anything else and just following the monk's rule and sustaining the body with food. So I'm guessing that's why these teachers who have practiced a lot, why they don't smile if they follow this insight practice rather than the whole thing.
Have you ever heard of the terms dry vipassana?
Yeah.
Okay, does that fit with this?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay, that's what the point is that the joy that is developed by developing the fields, the feelings, is juicy.
Yeah.
And that when people don't develop correctly, they still develop and they wind up there in the sense of they got there with the dry method. to where arahats that practice that through the correct practice with the development of feelings, they wind up in kind of a chuckle
Mhm.
rather than full on joy and gladness. That in fact, if you have uh, overflowing buckets and buckets and buckets of joy, that too becomes ordinary, empty. All right. And so the ultimate would be that the Buddha cracks a smile.
Yeah,
Okay. That.
you can't deny that. I mean, on all the statues, on most of the statues that you see of the Buddha, yeah, there's that little smile, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's something that's missed, especially with the the effort, the right effort that people think that they're applying in these hard style meditation retreats. They think that's the length of the sit or the amount of sitting that they're doing,
Hmm.
when really it's about the effort to change what's going on in the mind to make the right change.
Right. This is why the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths wind up as step 12 of that 16 stages of insight rather than right off the bat. Okay, when the Buddha says he only teaches one thing, why do we have to have all of this stuff before we get to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path? And the answer to that is step 11. That strong determination to redouble the effort. And why? Because the student has got himself into a state of fear, dread, misery, disgust, despair, and then a really strong motivation to get out of it, followed by the redoubling of the effort, step 11, followed by now they're going to start practicing correctly with the Eightfold Noble Path with all of its pieces and parts.
Hmm.
So, what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's method is let's see if we could start with step 11 and get the students enthusiastic about doing it without him having to trudge through all of the dukkha.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, that's the whole thing is let's short circuit that thing, and that's where the joy of the teacher comes into play. Because if the teacher has done the dry method, then that means that all of his students will have to work as hard and go through all of those processes and everything until the student on his own comes with the disgust and a strong desire to get out of it, followed by the redoubling of the effort.
Hmm.
Okay. And so every student has to figure it out on their own. And many do, and most don't.
Compliments to the abbot of Wat Ram Poeng, though. Um,
Hmm.
uh, his name was Ajahn Supan. Supan. I'm not.
Oh, okay. Bell rings. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. Okay.
He's actually very smiley. You know, he laughs quite a lot when he talks with retreatants. I can tell. You know, um, he's coming from the right place. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So Achan Tong, very very serious. You know, but Ajahn Supan was really. I mean, you, you could see that joy.
Well, the same.
He was his student.
Mhm. Sorry, what was that last?
Supan was actually Tong's student. So it was, you know, Ajahn Tong, Ajahn Supan was a student.
Okay, but Supan got the joy that his teacher Tong did not.
Did not seem to have.
Did not seem to have. Right. Okay. Well, an observer will see what the body is doing, which is a reflection of what's in the mind.
Mm,
So the mind is the forerunner for all behavior. The smile does not come from the lips, by the lips, and for the lips. The smile comes out of the mind.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. um, and so We can't tell what thoughts someone has in their mind. We don't know. Some people are actually quite good at deception, so you really don't know. But you can have a good guide in the sense of their behavior.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's agitated, you may not see their mind agitated, but you could sure see their foot wiggling,
Yeah.
crossing their legs at the ankle or crossing their legs at the knee, and that foot's just shaking and shaking and shaking. Okay. And the place where that happens most often is at a hospital or a doctor's office. Second most common place for it to happen is in a travel place like the railroad station, bus stops, uh, airplane hangars, those kind of places. It's when people get really agitated, but they don't want anybody to see how agitated they are, but it leaks out anyway
Yeah.
to those who are observing. So, back to the point about the smile, that you could also see another path other than the ones that we've been talking about, and that was going back to that cracking of the smile, is that the joy mellows out. Okay, that in fact, if you put it in the realm of the jhanas, you could say then that the third jhana is the mellowed out um, victory, and then the fourth jhana is the mellowed out joy. The
Oh,
things,
okay. Yeah.
okay, and there is no more laughter. When I say no more, let us say not so obvious, mellowed out, mellowed out joy. And in fact, a lot of people don't uh, pay much attention to it, but I started paying attention to it even when Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was there in front of me. I noticed this about him, and then when they would play the tapes, because they play the tapes of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, even today they'll play tapes all day long in a certain part of the Wat. And you can hear that chuckle
Yeah, you
in his
can.
voice. You can hear that chuckle in there that he's just kind of amused by everything that he says about the Dhamma. And I really enjoy that about him is that even though he's not howling with laughter, it's just the howling that stopped. The laughter is still there. And yet you can see then that the Mahasi method is the dry way of doing it because it doesn't ever fully develop the feelings. It just squashes them. And I think that that actually is a system that was already Hindu.
Oh, I
That
didn't
it
really know
come
about that. Yeah.
well, it comes out of the ancient methods. I mean, meditation practice was really, really common. That when the Buddha before he was enlightened, when he was still a bodhisattva, they they knew about the jhanas, and he practiced them with others, but it wound up not being enough for him. And when he came back to realize what was going on was is that one of the ways of saying it is that the students don't develop fully and stay in first jhana, which has the rapture and the piti, this born of seclusion, which it means of the hindrances, and that was what he was missing first too, was is that everybody wants to go right through the jhanas, which and the actual practice that the Buddha came across much later was no, we have to fully develop the first jhana, and by doing so, we fully develop the mind and fully understand how the mind works. Fully develop those feelings and understand how the feelings work through the teaching of Paticca Samuppada. And so I would say that the Drivapasana method has in fact predated the Buddha rather than grew up somewhere in the midst of it or was added later.
Mm. It just seems a bit strange that they said we only teach the meditation practice or meditation instructions, not the Dhamma, you know, because but then I mean there's still lots of ceremonies and ritualized stuff. I mean, lots of prostrations and lots of chanting and but the chanting is the Dhamma. It's right there. I mean, it's in Pali, but the translations are there, and it's in line with the teaching. But the method itself, it's not really doesn't explain it too well.
Actually, Goenka spends quite a lot of the time in his lectures and the Goenka retreat actually teaching Dhamma. The Mahasi method, I find that kind of surprising that the monk would say that, because the students get a lot of instruction, hours and hours of that 10-day course. A couple hours a day is going to be in that instruction phase. And basically, there's not much to the method. You could fully describe the entire process in about 10 minutes for those who understand it. It's because they don't understand it that we have to add all of this Dhamma into it to give them reason, purpose, and whatnot like that to keep going. That in fact, that's one of the reasons why so many of them talk about, is this particular retreat a failure based upon the criteria of what percentage of students left early. So if half the students leave the retreat before the retreat is finished, they would consider that a failure. But if 90% of them stay the whole course, they would consider that retreat a success. Okay. And what they're actually not doing is recognizing that the students, even though they have been told directly and easily how to practice, they don't understand it in that realm, because this stuff is really profound. That's why we have to add the Dhamma in. And I bet that even though he's saying that that we don't teach the Dhamma, we only teach the method. Can't teach.
You cut off at can't teach. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, what I was saying is that even though he says that they don't teach the Dhamma, they do teach the Dhamma if the course is successful. So I bet is what he's saying is we don't formally teach the Dhamma. We teach the Dhamma through teaching the method correctly. And if we only teach the method and not the Dhamma, then the students will quit the course because they're not getting anything out of it. But he's not intentionally formally teaching the Dhamma, but I bet he is. And so the surprise is that he'd say it that way, when in fact otherwise it's the case. Here's the only other possibility, which I think is also common, and that is that the people who, let us say, in that 50% that left, let's look at the 50% that stayed, and why they would stay is because what practice they're doing in their Dhamma is delusional, magical, probably.
The reason why they stayed?
Yeah, the reason that they stayed is because they want this magical jhāna. The reason that they stayed is because they want these magical powers. The reason that they stayed is so that they could see rebirth. To check it out, make sure that it's true.
Well, I didn't stay the full recommended length because I've already been through it, and I went on their website and I saw Ajaan, a picture of Achan Tong, a giant picture of him on their website, and I thought, oh, this again. Okay, so I tried to ask, can I go for a few days? And like, oh no, you minimum 7 days. So I think I said like six 6.5 because I arrived on Saturday afternoon and then left the following Saturday. But but yeah, I didn't feel the need to stay any longer because I mean, what is there to get out of it really?
Those are those that leave early, right? It's what am I doing here? What am I getting out of this? And those who stay in those failure courses,
I'm getting a lot of pain from the mindful frustrations, which are extremely slow and kind of damaging my ankle. And many people talk about the pain and the and they have to constantly be moving to otherwise the circulation cuts off in the legs and everything.
But you're talking about Westerners.
I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Because you talked about the ceremonies and the rituals and the chanting, and I imagine that quite a number of Thai people come for those things.
Yeah.
And they don't have any trouble sitting on the floor.
No.
It's only the Westerners.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
We've talked about this before. I mean, I've come up with some funny things, such as, I'm important. I got to be high up. I got to have my chair. Maybe I like the Thai, how Thais, like, if they eat, they eat on the floor quite a lot on like a mat, and it feels much more communal, much more I don't know, like a shared experience rather than an individual experience. Maybe also lowering themselves to put respected people higher, such as the teacher, or if there's a Buddha image, they don't want to be up so high. They'd rather be down low to show their respect to the Buddha.
I know about that. But the point that I was making is that it's the Westerners who have so much trouble sitting on the floor. And the reason for that is because as our society goes, when a child gets old enough, like at the age of 2, they put him in a high chair.
Yeah.
And when we go to school, we sit in a desk and a chair. Now that's also true with Thais.
Thais, yeah.
But I've watched my many times that the kids are sitting on the floor when I was over at the school. Okay, because it's part of the culture. So we can actually say that the body as it's growing up is affected by whether we continue to sit on the floor the way that we were flexible when we were really little, and if we continue to flex that way. That in fact most of the Thais have a way of sitting that actually has the left foot curled under the right leg, and they sit kind of sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I never learned to do that. I could
I
change the
try.
legs, but the torso I never got to do.
I try. I'm always off at a bit of an angle, and then I have to.
That's what I'm getting at, is that you haven't gotten the backbone twisted well enough to be able to sit straight up the way that they can when the legs are sitting on a side like that, because they've been able to do it their whole lives.
Yeah.
Or even in the lotus posture. I've got a stepdaughter that I first met her when she was 11 or 12, something like that. She's about to graduate from university. So that's how many years I've been around, about 10, 12 years. And since that time, every time that I have seen her eat, which has been on kind of regular basis from time to time, she always sits in a full lotus posture. And I know that a Westerner say, "Why do you do that? Why do you sit in a full lotus posture?" And the
It's
answer,
comfortable.
obviously, is because it's really comfortable.
Yeah.
It's really comfortable if you're flexible enough to sit in that posture. It's quite stable. But Westerners, we make it into a competition rather than being able to sit comfortably. It's how long can you endure sitting uncomfortably?
Yeah.
So at Wat Suan Mokkh, they have much shorter. They only have 30-minute sessions, and even then, the students are recommended that if your legs are hurting, to stand up or even walk around.
Yeah, I believe, I'm sure if there was a problem at this retreat, then they would say, yeah, you feel free to move, and because it was the same thing at Wat Chom Tong. But I know the sitting would be increased up to 1 hour, walking 1 hour, sitting 1 hour. I didn't stay long enough to get to that. I got to 50 minutes, which was still quite painful for the upper back eventually.
I know. Here's the point. Why do they make it a competition or a goal? Why don't we do it in the sense of sit as long as you're comfortable, and tomorrow sit as long as you're comfortable, and there may or not be a time difference in there. But if you keep sitting for long times and remain comfortable, then you'll be able to sit even longer, more comfortable. But if you get in the habit of sitting uncomfortable, then even if you extend the time, you're still in discomfort.
And that's not the teaching.
And that's not the teaching. No, no. But that's the dry method again. So the juicy method is that you have to be comfortable. That's why Anapanasati has step 4 of relaxing the body so that you can relax the feelings. Because if your body is uptight, your feelings are going to be uptight because you don't like what's happening in the body and you don't want to move because you're not supposed to move. You've got a rule in the brain about not moving.
Mm.
But if you have full control and you can sit as long as you please and have pleasure, then that's what we want to develop is the pleasure.
Now, I'm not familiar exactly with the 16 steps of insight. Like, I think you brushed up on them recently. Is that correct? Do you
No,
learn?
I just
No.
I just use the old brush.
Okay.
But
Well,
I have brushed up often,
I
right?
mean, the practice that I did might just fall in line with it. I haven't checked, but like I
Well,
used a lot of your kind of right speech. You know, this is a nice breath, and also like I mean, I know they're all from from the suttas as well. Like I see you, Mara, and such. But and the doubling down of effort that you mentioned before really does sound like when I was walking and constantly going through stuff from the past. And I stopped and I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna take the effort to look, take a look at what you're doing, um, stop and take the effort to look at what's going on in the mind. I think I remember you saying something along those lines,
mhm.
and I did because I was constantly being tricked, um, being pulled away from what I'm supposed to be paying attention to by the mind making up stories and or even like characters of the mind saying, "Hey, I've got this problem. You want to check it out? Let's walk over here and let's see what this is." In the mind, and completely
Hmm.
forgetting. And I was like, okay, no, I'm going to really see I'm really going to take a look at what's going on. So I made that determination, and every time it come up, aha, I see you, Mara, and making the effort to change to actually come back to stay at contact rather than and to laugh at it, to kind of laugh at what was coming up and once you point it out, once you like laugh at it, then it has no real power to because you're not grasping at it anymore. It's just like, aha, that again. All right, we'll move on back to the present moment. And
Yeah, when we can
yeah.
laugh at it, that means we don't care so much.
Yeah.
I'm using the word care in the sense of upadana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. That when we don't care, then everything is a joy.
Yeah.
Okay, and with the dry method, the intention is that you have to catch the caring and stop it. You have to just stop. Okay, and the way of the Buddha is no, we're not just going to stop it. We're going to actually learn to control it completely. In other words, we're going to bend it around or change it around. We're not just going to stab it in the back and leave it dead for dead. We're going to train it as a servant. And so that's the distinction between the wet and the dry is that with the wet method, which has the full development of the mind through the full development of the first jhana, so that when we reach the state of upekkha, it's still got that sliver of a smile left rather than deadpan.
When we get to upekkha, there's still a smile, you said?
Yes, there's a sliver of a smile that's left. So I'm glad that that you're checking out all of these wats in the Chiang Mai area.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to check them out. I'd like to find. I'm sure Wat Umong is just perfectly fine. You know, I've got a good monk friend there who I like to visit sometimes, and he shows me around different temples around the mountains. Sometimes, like further out from the city. Went on a great retreat in winter in January. Um, that was really nice. It was very remote, very far out, and it was, I think, a temple that there weren't many monks there. There were a few monks there, but they were traveling, you know, and they stop off at the temple and then they leave a few days later on their travels again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so hopefully can look into stuff like that again.
Actually, Tudong is quite, uh, let us call it, use the word popular in Thailand.
Mm.
Uh, the It actually has to do with the Phansa. That Phansa is the rainy season, though the rainy season that they practice in Thailand is actually the monsoon of India, and they don't quite coincide. That the monsoon, the real monsoon, is later in Thailand than it is in India. So basically,
Okay.
about half of Phansa is during September and October because that's the time when it's really wet, and they use the same old calendar.
Mm.
So this is why they at Wat Amaravati and Wat
Is it in England?
Abhayagiri,
Yeah.
but especially in the United States at Wat Abhayagiri, they have their Panza during the wintertime because that would be the wintertime
Smart.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're wise enough to make that change, even though the Thai people had trouble with them moving the Panza into the wintertime. But back to that point is that that's the time when the monks are together. Let us not use the word cloistered, but
Mm.
rather that they don't move around much. In fact, the rule is that once you choose wherever you start Panza, that's your base, and then you wherever you go, you have to get and spend only 2 nights away, and then you have to come back to that place.
Oh, I didn't know they could spend 2 nights away. Is it especially it's 2 nights in the I forgot what the rules are called now. Patty mock, is it?
Sorry, what was that?
It says in the Patty mock, right, is the rules. I forgot the
Actually, the full Vinaya is the
Vinaya.
whole set of rules, but it also has a huge number of uh, stories of where the rules came from, and I think that 2 day exception is part of the Vinaya, not part of the Paddy Mork. The Paddy Mork, I don't think, has the Panza retreats in it.
Okay.
But the
So
rest of
yeah.
the year, the point is, the rest of the year, monks are actually expected to be out and about. That there is actually a trail system that existed and was heavily used ever before there was actually a road. Highway, I think it's A4 that comes from Bangkok all the way down into Malaysia, right?
Mm.
That road was even under construction in when I was at Wat Suan Mokkh. It hadn't been finished yet all the way. Uh, but the trail system that paralleled that and went through the woods was already well established. Particular campgrounds. It's almost like a national park system for monks that has been
Mm.
established over the centuries. Okay, and that during the year there's many groups of monks, especially around Phansa, because a whole lot of monks would get into a walkabout or into Tudong to make it to Wat Suan Mokkh so that they could spend Phansa there. But after they finished Phansa, then they were back just all over the
They
place.
just need the permission from the preceptor, right, to leave and stay at that temple.
For the first 5 years.
Uh,
Okay, and after 5 years as a monk, then you're kind of on your own and you can go where you want to go.
and
With the
how
intention of going and staying with other monks, not going off into the hills, or worse still, going and living in a house that some layman has provided you with no monks around. That's what's frowned on. If you're going to
yeah,
be a monk, you need to be in a wat.
yeah. And what about the Samanen? They're not allowed to travel, I'm guessing.
They do travel, but in the company of senior monks, according to what their Upajjhaya says. And in fact, they're more than likely going to either be traveling with their Achan or the Upajjhaya. And the Achan and the Upajjhaya are the two main preceptors that when you have that very fancy ordination, almost all of the talking in Pali is done by the Achan. And the preceptor has a few things that's basically, yes, I understand, let's get next. And then the preceptor himself has a whole lot to say. And the trick is that to be an Achan formally, you have to learn a whole lot of Pali. And so there was one monk in the United States who was just a star, world class star at chanting. And he wound up doing the Achan part at most of the ceremonies of people who were ordaining in the United States. They would all call for Mahasamsak to do the chanting that's done.
Hmm.
The other part, though, is that if you are very serious about becoming a monk, then you will demonstrate that by learning the Pali, so that you do not need to be prompted or tutored during the ceremony, that you've got your part down. Not as long as the Achan's part, but there's quite a lot of stuff to it. A lot of it, by the way, is Achan Bante and Nati Bante, especially when they go into the part about do you have tuberculosis? Nate Bante. Do you have cholera? Nate Bante.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's the point is that uh, people who are serious about doing the ordination would in fact learn that. But back to the point about the Tudong. Yes, the Samanen go Tudong. The Achans go Tudong. Uh, that's part of the path. That in fact
Mm,
many Wats will have a statue of the Tudong, where the monk has a bowl, his umbrella, the heavy sandkati that goes over the shoulder, which is the extra heavy monk's robe. This is all camping gear.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all camping gear, and so he goes camping out in the woods. He's got his tent. He's got his umbrella, which makes a tent. He's got his big sangati, which will make a hammock.
Mm. And to bring this back to the original talk, I recently got taken out to um, by a friend to visit their hometown, which is about 2 hours north of Chiang Mai, and checked out a temple there. It was very nice. There was a cave there which connects to Chiang Rai, the same cave where that got flooded and the boys got trapped in there with the football coach.
Right, a
It's
couple years
actually it
ago.
actually connects through that system to that same place, but it's not in Chiang Rai. It's still in Chiang Mai region.
Mhm.
Anyway, she said she's visited Myanmar before, Burma, and she wasn't very impressed, but in a way, by the monks, or some of the monks, I should say, there. she said one of the monks that she met had been a monk in the temple his whole life since he was, I don't know, like 12 or something, and never left for his whole life, never left the temple. And he was like, I don't know, he was an old man.
Mm-hmm.
They just stayed in the temple for his whole life, never venturing out again.
Which makes him pretty ignorant of the world, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Mixed.
But it's a distinction between. I mean, I guess the Burmese method is quite unique.
Unique, yes, and popular. That as Buddhism was spreading, it looks like that the Mahasi method is the main way. I'm surprised that because students will get so much more out of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's teachings. But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was not interested, to be honest with you. It was Achan Poh, not Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, who was interested in Westerners. That Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, his interest was to get the Thai people to wake up.
Yeah.
And he was quite adequate at that, because we have literally millions of Thai people who now really better understand the Dhamma than through the magical way that's most common.
Yeah, I tried to bring it Bhikkhu Puttatat, Apatatat Bhikkhu as often as I can when I meet a Thai person. You're right. It's the older crowd that know about him. I was talking with a taxi driver yesterday and mentioned Bhikkhu Puttatat. He smiled. He knew about him. Yeah, it's practicing my Thai.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's that because of that sort of thing, that it's just now Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is beginning to catch on in the West. That Westerners will get much more value out of the practice if they add the parts back in that the Mahasi method has left out.
Can I ask about the retreat at Wat Suan Mokkh? Is I don't know, maybe I'm just checking it out now to refresh my memory. But how tough is it there on a retreat at Wat Suan Mokkh? Is it a completely different thing from the Mahasi retreats, or or is it similar, very, very orderly timetable, and you have to sit this long? And do you know about that?
Well, they do have a schedule. The last time that I was there that I had any real thing to do with the retreat was 2011. But I assumed that what they're doing then was what they're doing now. Actually, there is a kind of problem there that stems from the idea that only a monk should teach Dhamma. Probably heard that before in Thailand. That lay people don't teach Dhamma, only monks can teach Dhamma. And that mentality is in some people's minds and not others. Achan Poh and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa obviously thought that how are you going to be able to train a Westerner unless you put him in the fire? You got to let him teach, okay? Make some mistakes and get over it and become a good teacher. So Santikaro taught many years ago, and then in 2011, Ajaan Dhammavidu he's Western, but he now is hanging out almost exclusively with Achan Poh at Dipabhāvan.
I called about a week or two ago, and I asked what's it called again? Dipabhāvan. Dipabhāvan. Yeah, I called. They said he's not there currently. He was at Wat Suan Mokkh. He went back. Achan Poh.
Achan Poh, yes, he goes back and forth. He is the abbot of Wat Suan Mokkh. That's the
right.
Okay, he's the abbot of Wat Suan Mokkh, so we ought to put in an appearance from time to time. Okay, so back to the issue of the retreat. Achan Poh used to teach also the retreats along with Dhammavidu. When I don't want to get into the politics, but what
Right.
happens is that if you complain or make recommendations for changes to the structure of the way things are done at that retreat center, then the management will show you the door. And I can name you at least 8 people that that's happened to. And so my style there is to really get along with them. Don't make any recommendations. Don't ask for anything.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I mean, I was willing to check out this retreat just because I was recommended it by so many friends. I wanted to investigate, but I mean, I've before that, I didn't really consider retreats. Um, you know, since I've done so many, and kind of got the picture in a way. Um,
Well, Achan Poh and I were the ones who dreamed up the retreats, doing those at Wat Suan Mokkh back in 1983 when I was still a layman.
mm,
That's when the retreats got started. I think the very first retreat was done by a monk named Brian, who now lives in Singapore. But when he disrobed, there was no Western monks there until I came. And so that's when the retreats got started. So you can actually blame the retreats at Wat Suan Mokkh on me because I was there very early. And we did the retreats at the Boy Scout camp, which is still on the map there. And it was while I was there that Achan Poh built the retreat center that has the fortifications and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stories behind it. But the upshot is that right now I am, let us say, concerned because how good the Thai teachers are, their English is not good enough to make a really good retreat for Westerners. Their Thai retreats are number one first class. Okay, that in fact they've got so many retreat facilities. They've got for men and women the original 60 room places, and now they have built additional places that have 125 bedrooms each. 125 plus 125 is 250, plus 120 is 370 private rooms. Now that's a retreat center. Why would
mm,
they have so many rooms? Because the Western retreat says best will be 120 when they're maxed out. The first original 60. I don't think there's ever been a Western retreat where they actually open the big dormitories, but they always use the big dormitories with the Thai retreats because the Thai retreats are much better there than the Western retreats. Partly the reason for that is because every Westerner that comes there tries to fix the place and gets shown the door. That's what happened to actually some of the monks. That's what happened to Santikaro. That's what happened to Dhammavidu. It happened to Brenda. Gosh, the list just goes on and on. It happened to Wilford. Um, so the point there is to don't find fault with the place, or you'll be asked to leave.
it's
If you're
paradise.
yeah, it's already paradise. Get used to it. If it's not a paradise for you, get the hell out.
Mm,
um, and the reason for that is nepotism. The guy who runs the place is actually the nephew, the real live nephew of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. And he runs the place and he does it the way that he wants to do it. He doesn't take any crap from anybody because he's Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's nephew.
yeah, yeah.
He's older than I am now. He's in his 80s. Uh, but anyway, that's the issue with the retreat center at Wat Suan Mokkh, the International Dhamma Hermitage. If you already know how to practice and you don't need any instruction, you don't need any Dhamma, hot dog, that's a really great place to go. Another great thing to do is to go volunteer there. But
Mm,
that's in fact what a lot of Westerners do because Dam Kiem is right next door. I don't know what a door means because there's a pathway and all of that. But anyway, it's about a 10-minute walk. But from Dom Kiem, normally what happens is in order for the guys to not go out on Bendabat all month long, they can take 10 days off going to Bendabat to get free food at the dining hall for the retreats.
Ah, yeah,
And that's where they wind up being volunteers.
yeah.
So
With
they
the food?
because yeah, the food's easy to get,
Yeah.
and it's a
Uh,
little bit more westernized than what they find on the street.
yeah. So volunteering there would mean what exactly? Do you know?
Hang out and enjoy your life.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought.
And when somebody comes by that's not, mention it to them. Hey, you don't have to feel bad. You can feel good instead. And so the volunteers will do things like the meetings that every student has a 15-minute meeting with teachers. Sometimes they're done in small groups of 3 or 4 or 5 people, but most of the time, every student gets about 15 minutes with a teacher, and quite often those teachers are actually the volunteers that live at Don Kiem.
See.
There, uh, I think her name is Ben. There's a Mechi named Ben who does a lot of the speaking at Wat Suan Mokkh. She's very, very traditional. She's very much like Achan Ranchuan, which is another Mechi that I knew there. So the instructions are given by an elderly Thai lady. Uh, hasn't gotten English down pat yet, but oh, she's got a beautiful smile.
There were so many mechis on my retreat at Wat Ram Poeng. There's a lot, and yeah, they're great, helping out with everything.
So that about covers it. I would recommend, because Achan Poh and Achan Dhammavidu both speak much better English, that the first retreat to go to would be the one at Dipabhāvan, Koh Samui. That's the place to go. That's a better place for beginners. If you're an
Mm.
old hand at it, then Wat Suan Mokkh Retreat Center, the International Dhamma Hermitage, is really worthwhile doing. In fact, at that time that I went there in 2011, after I'd signed up for the course and made friends with this one and that one, and saw Achan Meti and also Kun Metta and whatnot, Achan Poh found me there because he had traveled in. He says, "What are you doing here? Why don't you come with me back over to Wat Suan Mokkh?" And the answer to that is, "Oh, well, I'm here to check out Dhammavidu, that I want to hear him talk." So that's why I was able to do that retreat. Achan Poh didn't even want me to be there.
Hmm.
He says, "What are you doing here? You don't need to do this."
This was at Suan Mokkh?
This was at Wat
Yeah.
Suan, November 2011.
Hmm.
So, uh, any case, we've got a lot of retreat centers here. There's 2 retreat centers here on this island, as well as I don't even know how many retreat centers there are on Samui.
Yeah, it was quite during the rainy season, because it rained a lot. It was quite problematic with laundry and such. I didn't bring many clothes with me to Ram Poeng, and I ended up being very smelly wearing the same same clothes, because it was just problematic. The laundry. Someone left their stuff in, and well, actually, a monk left their stuff in, left their robes in, and I was like, should I take it out? Nah, I'm happy wearing the same clothes. Just I know other people aren't happy with my smell, but I'm fine.
Well, rainy season is not going to stop you from taking a bath, and you can wash your clothes and then just wear them wet. In fact, I remember doing that specifically
I've never done that
because
before. Yeah.
the at the Goenka Retreat Center, the monsoon was really, really a big deal. They even took one of the halls that they had and put little cooking pots full of coal and wood and all that kind of stuff. The room was really smoky, but at least it was warm enough to dry the clothes, because otherwise everything was wet.
Mm.
That even though they used this whole room for nothing but a laundry drying room, it was probably the the biggest laundry. They call them dryers in America. This place was a whole Buddha hall that was nothing but a dryer. And it still had moss growing up the walls. That's how bad the monsoons were there. It just rained constantly. Um, and so, if that was what was happening in Chiang Mai, I can appreciate it. And so, the answer to that is that if you wear the clothes and think dry, the clothes will dry. If you wear the clothes wet and think wet, they'll stay wet.
I don't really understand that one.
It's got to do with your mind. Is your mind sharp
Oh,
enough?
do I have to feel down because my clothes are wet?
Right, uh-huh.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so you're dead. You're wet too. But if
Yeah.
you could say, "Hot dog, I can dry these clothes," then you can.
Mm.
You bring
Yeah,
your
right.
you can bring what we in Thai we call chiwit chua,
Chiwit
which
meaning
in
life.
Chinese is chi.
Yeah.
In the black communities in America, we call it mojo.
Yeah, yeah.
Get your mojo going. So, um,
That's good. I might have to give that a try. I've never worn clothes. I never washed clothes and then worn them wet before they dried before.
mhm.
Maybe a little patch of where the cloth is thick or a pocket or something, but not the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, after they're washed, that's an easy way to dry your clothes. Just put them back on. What do you think the monks do? That the lower cloth is called the range cloth, and it's used as a towel. It's used as a washcloth, and when you finish with doing that, you put it back on.
Hmm. And I think I'm sure some monks and practitioners would use some Dhamma, short
Well,
breathing.
modern times have changed, but the old traditions were that, hey, if you're going camping, if you're on Tudong, why'd you want to carry two towels because one of them's wet? What are you going to do with a wet towel anyway? You're out walking now. Are you going to
Hmm.
go walk around and then come back to where you were to get your dry towel? It may not be there.
Right. Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
I think the word is either sarong or lungi, depends upon what country that you're in.
For the thick towel that they
Well,
wear
it's
underneath.
it's not thick. It's just a piece of cloth, the range cloth. We
Hmm.
use it as a towel.
I see.
And you see that actually in not not so much in the city, but out in the farms, out in the communities, you'll see both men and women with nothing on but a sarong or a lungi. The men wear them too. In fact, my landlord, I've only seen him in pants one time. The rest of the time, he's wearing a lungi or a sarong. I don't know what the Thai word is. I know that sarong is the word they use in Burma. Lungi is what they use in India.
Sarong and a what? Sorry.
Lungi,
Lungi.
Lungi, and it's like a shawl that you wear from the waist down.
Hmm.
And every monk wears them.
Pretty handy. Yeah. Lots of different uses.
Well,
Just a piece of cloth.
it's traditional. That in
Yeah.
fact, if you look at it, the monk's robe is nothing but camping equipment that you wear all day.
Hmm.
Take the robe off at night, and now it's a blanket. So I really appreciate this. Why don't we finish this call now? I think that we've pretty well talked. I really appreciate you giving the information about the Wats in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, I mean, if because it's usually when I'm talking about when I'm talking with Thai people, they're very if they don't know me, they're very surprised when I mention like Dhamma or Buddhism, and they say, oh, you know, they usually talk about their favorite Wats and stuff to me. So yeah, I'm willing to do the investigation, you know.
Great. In fact, I've got a guy named John now. I think his name John. I'm going to send this video to him right away because he's up there in Chiang Mai right now, and I think he'd get a kick out of this.
Cool.
So anyway, Marcus, let's finish this call now, and then give me a call if you got something else on your mind.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay?
All the best.
We'll see you.